and also I'll make sure I answer your questions as well. Right now, you have a big issue with the housing market. There are a lot of concerns that the real estate market is in bad shape. I mentioned to you guys before that commercial real estate was in trouble. That's been known for a while. Now, just residential and everything is having some problems. And some of the notes I mentioned here is that Redfin mentioned that they sold 4.1 million homes, which is the lowest since 2011, and also it's the least affordable market since 1985. So a lot of you may have noticed this already. Maybe you live in places like Atlanta, where the real estate market's just gotten kind of stupid and ridiculous. And I don't know when the relief will be in sight. I don't know what's going to change that. But a lot of that's driven by these higher interest rates. So effectively, here's one thing that's important to understand: the rules of finance that you might have applied in 2014 or something are not going to apply right now. They're not going to apply anymore. People say things that they almost make me laugh. Like they'll say, "Oh my God, I can't believe that mortgages are 7.5% now," and they act like that's insane. Like it can't get any higher. That's the worst that it can ever be. And people don't understand that back in the 80s, you had I want to say something like early 80s, you had 21% interest rates, 21%. And that's if you had good credit. So imagine being in an economy when you have good credit and you're paying 20% interest. That's what the early 80s was like. And also inflation was 18%. So typically when a company charges you interest, what they're doing, part of the reason that they charge you interest on that loan is because they're making money back to compensate themselves for inflation. An interest rate has different components to it. Let me see if I can remember. There are three components to an interest rate. I'm trying to go back to grad school in my head. It's broken into pieces. It's broken into part of it is driven by inflation, right? If think about this, if inflation's 12% and you're only paying me 5%, then I'm losing money, right? My dollars that you give me back are going to be worth less than the dollars that I gave you. So I need at least that 12% to compensate for inflation. Then there's risk, right? The chance that you may not pay me back. So the riskier you are, the higher the interest rate I'm going to charge. In fact, some people can be so risky that you don't loan them anything. And this makes for the debate about things like payday loans. Like people say, well, payday loan companies are bad. Get rid of them. Get them out of certain neighborhoods because they prey on the poor. And they do. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think they prey on the poor, but it's not for the reasons you think. The high interest rate, to me, isn't as much of a signal, the predatory nature of it, as other things like the way they might have hidden fees or fine print, or the way they'll get you, they'll really kick your butt on late payments and stuff like that. That's where the predatory part happens. The interest rate, to some extent, is a logical outcome of the fact that you're loaning money to people that nobody else will loan money to, right? And so when you're doing that, you have to have some sort of compensation for the fact that a lot of those people are not going to pay you back. And remember this, here's the other thing too. This is not this is all consensual, to use that terminology, right? That it's not like anybody has ever been forced to go to a payday lender. Nobody's ever said you got to buy that couch at Rent-A-Center. But I bought a couch at Rent-A-Center when I was in school. Why did I do it? Well, because they were the only people who would give me a couch at that time, because I didn't have no money, I had no credit, I had nothing, right? So I was okay with paying a higher rate in order to get my couch, right? So one of the debates about things like payday lenders and all that is there are some people who say, oh, they're bad, they're predatory, get rid of them, and you're not, you're hurting people, and all that might be true. But then what happens though is they'll go in and they'll say, yeah, we're going to help you by getting rid of the payday lender. And there's like, some, struggling single mom or something who's like, no, I needed that payday loan place to get money when I was in a bind. Right. And so there's different perspectives on that. Right. So an interest rate will be broken into the inflationary component, compensating for the fact that my dollars are worth less when you give them back to me than they were when I gave them to you. There's risk, the fact that you may not pay me back. And then there's this third component they call the impatience parameter. The impatience parameter basically says, if I give you my money, Oh, sorry, my phone's making noise. The impatience parameter says if I give you money, then I can't use my own money. Like if you're holding my money, then I can't use it, right? If you're driving my car, I can't go anywhere. Or if you have my TV, then I can't watch TV. So I need to be compensated for the fact that I can't use my TV. So effectively, all these variables kind of move up and down over time, and right now, with inflation being what it is, what has happened is that you have an economy where number one, you're not going to be able to see as many companies get the funding and the growth as you had in the past. What happened when we had the low interest rate environment was that companies were able to do crazy things like go borrow, millions of dollars, lose money for 5 or 6 years, and just to acquire market share, and then figure out later on if they were going to ever try to make a profit. That's not going to work as much anymore because now time really becomes money again. Time is always money, but now time really is money. Why? Well, because if you've got all that debt on the books and your company's not making a profit, you're going to have to pay interest on that money, and it's going to be a significant amount of interest. So a lot of companies are going to go bankrupt if they're sticking with the old model and not adjusting. Like Netflix adjusted. Netflix used to do crazy things. Like they were making over $20 billion a year on subscription revenue, but they still went out and borrowed 14 billion just to go make new content. And I didn't understand that. I said, well, why not just use your revenue to make your content? But they did that because money was cheap and money was pretty much free. Now that's not true anymore. Now they're not going to go borrow as quickly as they used to. Okay. All right. So what is effectively going on is that you is that you are dealing with a different kind of environment. The other thing you want to be careful about is that interest isn't just getting higher, but also banks are less willing to loan money. So if you're into things like flipping houses or if you're living off your credit cards, things like that, you want to be really careful about that right now because banks are doing things like cutting people's lines of credit without telling them. They're increasing interest rates because they have things clauses in their contracts that allow them to do that. Also, what's really big right now is this data that's coming out on retail sales. Retail sales is going to be interesting in terms of moving the stock market because not only are things more expensive, but also the consumer is kind of getting tired. The consumer was sort of carrying the economy for a long time. And the confusion they had was they said, wow, we keep on banging away at the consumer. We keep trying to hurt the economy and it doesn't work because the consumer is so resilient. Americans are so addicted to spending that we can't make them stop. Well, now they're going to stop soon because they're running out of money. Their savings are becoming depleted. Also, many of them are living on the credit cards. In addition to that, student loans are starting to come back. So the retail sales number is going to be really big in terms of letting us know where the economy is right now. So the big word to keep in mind with this economy is uncertainty. There is so much uncertainty out there, particularly around interest rates and what the Fed might do, but also geopolitical risk, right? We got this war in the Middle East. The war could escalate or it could die down. If it escalates, then you have issues with things like the price of oil. Oil is an important part of the inflation calculation. So if the conflict blows up and you got Hezbollah in Lebanon getting involved, and then Iran gets involved, and then Russia's involved, well, these are all major oil producers, which could just spike the price of oil to something crazy. So if you are a person that believes that this conflict is going to really get big and out of control, then maybe you go buy some stocks in oil companies, right? Or maybe you go buy, some options and futures related to oil, if that's what you believe. And that's kind of, but remember this, with that conflict in the Middle East, I'm not an expert on it, but I've read a lot about it to try to understand it. And this has happened many, many, many times before, right? So it's as sad as what's happening in the Middle East is. It kind of happens about once every 6 or 7 years, and it's crazy. I don't know when those people are gonna stop fighting, but that's what it is. What else? Also this week, and I'm gonna give you guys a stock that I'm gonna buy in a second too. So now we're hitting earnings season, right? So a lot of companies are going to start releasing their earnings numbers. That's big. That's going to move the market quite a bit. And up until this point, you've had about 8 or 9 companies that have driven the majority of movement in the stock market. Like literally you have thousands of stocks that are in that top, top few hundred or top few thousand stock companies, but eight of them are kind of driving most of the movement. That hopefully will expand. And as it expands, then that could be an upward catalyst for the market. One company I'm going to buy is a company called Cadence Design Systems. The ticker symbol is CDNS. CDNS. I'm doing a flight lesson. I'm going to be flying today. So I'm going to practice my phonetic alphabet so you guys can hear it. I'm going to say it again. Ready? CDNS, which is Charlie Delta November Sierra. That's it. I'm flying to me and my instructor are going to fly to Champaign, Illinois today, and it's a Class Charlie airspace, which is a big deal. In case you don't know, maybe don't know pilot talk. We pilots, this is how we talk. But anyway, Class Charlie is like a bigger airport. So when you're flying, you have to talk to the tower, and he's training me to make these flights by myself. I can fly the airplane by myself, but flying to another airport by myself, I have not done that yet. So today we're flying, and I have to be able to talk back to the air traffic control tower, and you have to talk quick because they'll give you an answer real fast and you got to be able to respond quick, and it could be a little stressful, but it's a lot of fun. So anyway, so in general, with these earnings announcements, that's what you're going to see. You're going to see some movement, and the stock is again a CDNS. That's Charlie Delta November Sierra. So feel free to write that down. This is not investing advice, but I am going to buy some shares in this company. Also, what else? There is a recession that's most likely coming. So just sort of be ready for that. The Fed's been trying to create a recession for a very long time. They just haven't been able to do it, I guess. And it's crazy because they're actually trying to spike up unemployment, which sucks, right? That they would want to do this, but this is what they have to do to squash inflation. But the thing about inflation that I want you to understand too, and by the way, it's not CDNC, Roger, it's CDNS. But yeah, so the other thing about inflation that I want you to understand is that inflation doesn't hurt everybody, right? Do you get what I'm saying? Inflation doesn't hurt everybody. Inflation hurts people. It hurts workers. That's who it hurts. Why does it hurt workers? Well, because if you're a worker and your salary isn't going up, or you've been making the same amount of money for the last X number of years, or your pay raises are just garbage, but inflation is super high, then how are you going to cope with that? How do you adjust to that? It's very difficult, right? And it's not just uneducated workers. When I was at Syracuse University, my salary, I made a lot of money relative to most people at Syracuse. I'm not complaining, but my salary when I started was $115,000 a year. Pretty good for a 30-year-old man, right? But when I left over 12 years later, it had gone from 115 to about 125. And so that increase over a 10-year period was almost nothing. So it's not just uneducated workers. It's even people with PhDs and stuff like that, professors. That was one of the things that led me to say, okay, I think I want to do something a little bit different or supplement my income. And I think by that time I'd written a few books and I was giving some speeches. So instead of asking for more pay raises, I just made more money, right? And this is another thing that I encourage you to do, right? These are basic skills that every child can learn, right? You teach this to your kids. Make this just part of their core value system. Like you should always have extra hustles that allow you to go outside of the system to get what you need. Like don't just sort of keep walking toward the wall and bumping your head. Like just walk around the wall, right? Climb over it, go underneath it, right? There's a lot of ways to skin that cat. So with that said, though, inflation tends to help people that have assets that are correlated or connected with inflation. So what does that mean? That means that if I am a real estate owner, because my mom and dad taught me as a kid to buy a house as soon as I can, then when inflation hits, it's going to hit real estate too. So that means that even though I don't like the fact that things cost more, well, the value of my property is going up, 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 up. You understand? If I own stocks, then what happens is that my well-being economically is tied to the economic well-being of Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk and these people that own these companies. Do you ever think that there will ever be in a state of the world where Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk do not know how to make money? Do you think that major corporations, Microsoft, etc., are ever going to forget how to make money? You think Home Depot is going to forget how to make money? Do you think that they're ever going to run into a situation where they say, we can't do it, we might as well get on welfare because it's too hard out here? No, they're not. They adjust. Just Disney knows how to make money in any economic environment. So when you own stock, what happens is that your fate becomes tied to their fate, right? Like really, if you talk about it from a racial standpoint, what bus do I want to be on? I want to be on whatever bus the rich white man is on, in the sense that whatever he's making, I want to make it. Whatever he's eating, I'm going to eat the same thing, because I know what if he's cooking, he's not going to feed himself poison. He might feed me poison if I'm eating something different, right? So effectively, what I would say to you is that this is another reason why that investing piece has to be part of what you do, because there's something called asset inflation that doesn't get talked about as much, and asset inflation is actually and typically higher than regular inflation. Asset inflation is the increase in cost of things like stock, the increase in costs in things like real estate and other commodities. So if you get some asset inflation in your life, then when regular inflation hits, you're not going to get hit as hard. Also, if you are a business owner, then you have that ability to pass some of the cost increase on to the customer a little bit, or whatever, right? Or at least you have that second stream of income that helps you to become economically secure. I also encourage you to make sure that your kids understand that when you talk about skinning the economic cat, do not be constrained by culture. Do not be constrained by what everybody else has done up until this point. So, for example, a lot of us believe that every house, every apartment must be occupied by one person or two people or one family. That's not a rule, though. There's no rule saying that two families can't get together and share a big house and cut the cost together. There's no rule saying that that all the kids can't still live at home as long as they're contributing to the economic outcome of the house. If all five of us are working and all five of us are pulling our money together, then we can run this house together, right? What makes it fall apart, and I wrote about this a lot in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power. What makes it fall apart is when you have people that see themselves as dead weight, or don't understand the importance of working together. And so effectively, I would say to you that because you're in this new economic regime, you're in a new regime where inflation's higher, uh, interest rates are higher, opportunities are lower, wages are lower. This requires some economic creativity. And if you're worried and you're not sure what to do, I got you. Like this is what I do. I understand. I can see the levers moving, and I'd be happy to share with you what I know. But you have to sort of walk away from whatever you might have been taught up until this point. The stuff that you've been taught probably isn't working. And if you don't believe me, just look around and see if it's working for the people that are doing sort of what everybody else does. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is answer a few more questions. And I think, let's see here. Did Shauna, I keep calling her Shania. I'm sorry. It's Shauna, not Shania, Shauna. Let's see. Atasha says, I missed the discount to register for the conference virtual platform. Shauna, can you take care of Atasha? I know Shauna's inside the Zoom, so Shauna's part of our team, our support team. So thank you, Shauna. I appreciate that. So and by the way, so the convention starts on Friday. You can go to allblacknationalconvention.com. All we're doing the whole weekend is learning and connecting, and we're gonna have a lot of fun too. Don't think that being smart and black means you can't have fun. We have a blast at the convention. We've got top quality entertainment on the night of the ball. Everybody loves the ball. It's like a bunch of real fancy black folks. We all get real dressed up and everything. You'll see me there in my nice suit. My wife will be there. And but then before that though, we're doing a lot of learning and a lot of connecting. So when you're there, whether you're at the convention virtually or physically, what I want to encourage you to do is to use that as an opportunity to connect with your people. Find your play cousin, find your long lost relatives, because as you guys know, we don't have a world where everybody kind of thinks this way. I like to believe that we're living in the 22nd century. I really do. I think that the ideas that we talk about are going to be common in the community maybe 70 years from now, 60 years from now. We're ahead of our time, and I'm proud of that. And so, in my view, the convention is your opportunity to find people that are kind of on that same wavelength. And if you want to know what that wavelength is, let me break a couple things down. Number one, in the Black Business School, our core values, we believe in the Black Core of Three. The Black Core of Three says that we believe Black people should educate our own children, create our own jobs, and support Black-owned businesses. We have to educate our own kids because we know how terrible the public school system is. I'm not here to just complain about it. I want to actually fix it. That's why we hire professors and everything else, because we can teach ourselves. And also parents should be teaching children, not these schools. But then number two, creating our own jobs. That's really important because people who have a job can't really go create a lot of jobs. If you are an executive or a high level manager at a company, at best, you might be able to get one job or two jobs for people you care about if your boss gives you permission. But if children are trained early on what economic infrastructure looks like, then they're going to be thinking scale from the very beginning. So when I'm thinking scale, what that means is that I put myself in a position where I can go hire a dozen people or 20 or 30 people. And if I'm really doing well, I can hire 100 people, 200, 1,000, right? A lot of these individuals in our, the millionaire rappers and millionaire athletes, if they had scale in mind, they could instantly tomorrow, go and hire hundreds of Black people. But the limitation is the thinking. They were never taught to think that way. They think of themselves as an employee. I'm an employee for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm an employee for the Cleveland Browns or whatever, right? And as an employee, you're only thinking about one job, maybe your family, maybe a little bit of charity, and that's the limitation. When really, I want you thinking like a mogul. I want you thinking like a boss. I want, LeBron James and people like that, which I think they kind of get it. And don't get me wrong, it's not like none of them are doing this, but I want them thinking like Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones probably has so many employees, he doesn't even remember everybody he's hired, right? And or think like Elon Musk. Elon Musk has hired probably close to 1 million people through Tesla and all this other stuff. He could have just been an engineer with a good job. That's what he could have done that, right? I listened to his whole bio, I went through his whole book. He could have done that. He could have just said, I'm good with computers. I'm a smart guy. I want to get Apple to give me a job. And he could have just been an employee for the rest of his life. But instead, he's creating hundreds of thousands of jobs. When I was in not San Antonio, I went to speak at the Wealth and Power Conference at what was it? What's that city? Not San Antonio. Somebody help me. It's in Texas. The tech, it's becoming like the tech hub. It's where Austin. Thank you, Chris. Sheesh. Where's my brain? Austin. Yeah, I spoke in Austin, and the Uber driver was showing me all these massive, gigantic buildings that Elon Musk and Tesla had created. And he said, Tesla's over here. Those are all those buildings. SpaceX bought 10,000 acres of land over there, and they put all their employees in houses over here. And this is massive subdivision. Like this is the kind of stuff that requires a level of vision. And one thing you would notice is that if you look at the history of Musk, and not to put this man on a pedestal, this is just a prototype, but from the time he was young, he thought with a certain scale. So it wasn't that he was smart. It was that he thinks big. Because I know a lot of people who are super smart, have all kinds of degrees and letters behind their name, but we're always taught to think very small. Like, how can I get me a good job? And George Fraser and I talked about that yesterday. We were on the phone. He said, yeah, I grew up hearing that your goal was to get a good education so you can get a good job. And we both agreed that we need to create jobs, but a job creator just has a certain mindset from the very beginning that's very different from a job seeker. So I think that if we really challenge our kids to think like job creators and to think in terms of scale, then they can really create real opportunities. Because here's another statistic you guys may not know. There's a study that says that most white corporations don't want to be more than maybe 6 or 7% Black. Once they get about 6 or 7% of their workforce that's Black, it becomes like a Black neighborhood. You know what happens when neighborhoods turn Black? All the white people leave, right? You have white flight. They don't want to be a part of it because in their mind, Blackness is kind of just an ugly, bad thing. They don't want to be connected to that, right? So effectively, if you really want to see the kind of hiring and opportunity that we need and we deserve, you need to have people that are really thinking big. And to give you an example of limited thinking, I remember all those long conversations I had with Kanye West, and I was trying to politely let him know that that the amount of money that Adidas was paying you, that's more than most corporations make. And so if all you're thinking about is buying a car or buying a house or your daughter's birthday party or whatever you're spending money on, you're missing the point. You're missing a $1 trillion opportunity here, right? Because when I see $20 million being paid to you every month or whatever the number was, because he made $250 million in 1 year, that's an insane amount of money. When I'm seeing that, I'm seeing entire school systems that can be built. I'm seeing thousands of people that can be hired. I'm seeing thousands of businesses that can be funded. I'm seeing banks. I said, yeah, JP Morgan is forcing you to take your money back. but you could be JP Morgan. Like, you could become the bank yourself. You do understand. And again, I'm not speaking as a regular guy. I have a PhD in this stuff. You're the bank, man. You don't need a bank. You are the bank. And it wasn't, it was a hard conversation because it wasn't my money, it was his money. He listened. He got, like, I explained the Black Core 3 to him. He texted back to me the next morning because he liked the Black Core 3, and I like it too. That's what I believe in. But it was sort of like to say, imagine if he'd been trained to think in terms of scale, the way I talk to you guys, right? Like the way you're training your kids. Like, one day we will have someone with that level of money who's thinking in terms of scale. And what that person's going to do is they're not going to spend 1 second thinking about a job. They're going to be thinking about capital infrastructure. They're going to be thinking in terms of teams and building systems, right? If you have teams and systems in place, then you can deploy that capital on a massive scale and have massive impact, right? They're not thinking in terms of labor. Like, a lot of times when we're trying to make more money or succeed, we're thinking, okay, I can work harder at my job and spend more hours or whatever. And that's, again, that's very economically primitive thinking to some extent. No disrespect, to anybody who thinks that way, but that's primitive in the sense that that's not really how billionaires, that's not how JP Morgan thinks. That's not how, or used to think. That's not how Bill Gates thinks. That's not how Mark Zuckerberg thinks. Mark Zuckerberg is thinking in terms of systems. He's thinking in terms of teams. He's thinking in terms of technology, and he's thinking in terms of scale. Right. So that really is the secret. I believe that if we have millions of people thinking that way, a few of them are going to get through the cracks and become billionaires and be able to really create just so many jobs and really do the transformative work that's required for the community to really grow and evolve and develop the way we want it to. All right. So anyway, all right. So let me hop back in, and then if I ever get if I ever get that 100 million or that $1 billion, then you already know the secret's out. You already know what I'm going to do with that. I'll be putting together boards and teams and all that. In fact, we have an acronym for our business school for children. It's called Black Millionaires of Tomorrow. If you want to take a look at it, just go to blackmillionairesoftomorrow.com. In Black Millionaires of Tomorrow, we have an acronym. It's STURDY, that we want our kids to be sturdy. And STURDY is spelled STERDY. And STURDY stands for systems, technology, entrepreneurship, relationships, and delegation for youth. Right. So systems means that I'm not thinking, okay, how many hours can I work in order to make money? I'm not thinking, okay, if I make $40 an hour, I work 5 hours, I make $200. You're thinking in terms of systems, right? Systems can work even when you're not working. Systems can work when you sleep. Systems can scale. So and thinking in a systematic way requires a certain kind of training. Every one of our children should get that training as kids, right? Technology means that technology is everything. AI is going to be everywhere. The internet's already everywhere. So if you know technology, it opens the door for your systems to be deployed so you can then have those opportunities to scale. So everybody should understand technology, not just as a way to get a better job, but as a way to implement systems on a higher on a higher scale. Like, for example, I'll give you a real life example, what we've done here in the Black Business School. I didn't have the capital that I needed to build a university or an institution. So I had to think in terms of like what systems could be implemented and what technology can be used to allow us to scale and reach the whole world. Because back in 06, 07, I was like, okay, I really want to change this culture. I think I can do it. I just got to think about it. So the systems were, I said, okay, the internet's out here. That's the technology. So the systems were, okay, I'll do certain things, content creation, books, whatever, classes. And so as a result, we were able to reach millions of people. Like we're probably approaching 1 billion views on YouTube. We have several YouTube channels with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. I just don't talk about it much, but 2 of them have 500,000, just to give you an idea of that scale in the systems. We didn't get one Facebook page. We have about 90. We have several that are well over 200,000-300,000 followers. We have systems and scale and technology everywhere that's helping us to implement, because here's the thing. When I was at Syracuse, I would teach 30, 40, 50 students at a time. I didn't want to teach 30, 40, 50 students at a time. I said, I want to teach 5,000 people at a time. I want to teach 50,000 people at a time. Right? I want to teach anybody that will listen. Right. And so the E stands for entrepreneurship. Every single Black child in America should learn to be an entrepreneur by the age of 12. That's essential for survival. As the head of a household, you have to be able to create opportunities or be what I call an economic playmaker, meaning that you have to create an opportunity when it's not there. I have a nephew who is he's like a play nephew, but he's a rapper. And one time he Dre Priest, that's his name, Dre Priest. But his music is it's evolving, right? So we have conversations about that, and I don't judge his creative expression, but we do have conversations about economics and stuff like that, and what it means to have control in your career and all that stuff. So one time I called him years ago, about a decade ago, and I said, "How you doing?" And he said, I'm not doing so great. I lost my job." And I said, "Well, what happened?" He said, "Well, the white man ain't hiring." And I said, "But you have a child. You can't say that. Like your child doesn't want to hear, like, I don't get to eat because the white man ain't hiring. You have to create an opportunity for yourself." Right. So entrepreneurship, what that allows you to do is to create opportunities for yourself. Right. Even if it's on a small scale, even if it's a side hustle. R for the in sturdy is relationships. Uh, the reason we have the first ever Black financial therapy department in the Black Business School is because we have mental illness. We have rampant mental health issues that are completely unaddressed in our community. It doesn't just impact our quality of life; it definitely impacts our economics. And part of the consequence of these significant mental health issues is that relationships die. Family members stop speaking to each other. People start fighting instead of collaborating. People get triggered, and next thing you know, entire projects fall apart because two women start fighting, or two men start fighting, or a man and a woman can't get along. Families fall apart because the unaddressed trauma, the unaddressed mental health issues cause us to make really bad, irrational choices. So I believe relationships should be taught as a class. I think relationship management should be a class that young Black children learn. Because what I found from my wife being a therapist, this is what her doctorate's in, is that there are tools you can teach anybody that will help you manage a conflict resolution. Think about how many of our kids would not get killed if they just knew how to go sit down and talk to somebody instead of pulling up and shooting them. Or think about how many business ventures have died because two people got into a beef and they started fighting and it all fell apart. Or think about how many great families that could have built wealth together can't do it because they can't talk to each other, right? This is lost opportunity. This is lost wealth. Every time you see a hip hop group, we've talked about this before, every time you see a hip hop or a music group that could be making money, they can't resolve their conflict, but so that it keeps them from going on tour or whatever, that's money lost. Like if Beyonce was so bad with relationships that her whole team didn't want to work with her, then that $1 billion or 800 million or whatever her Renaissance tour made wouldn't have existed. It would have fallen apart. All right. So effectively, what I believe is that if you want to understand wealth, you got to understand relationships. George Fraser, again, a guy I was just on the phone with, he's coming to the convention. He's a guru at relationship building, and there's a specific way he engages you every time he talks to you. I noticed that. I observe how he talks to me, how he talks to other people, and it's really impressive in terms of understanding how that translates into doors opening for him that will be closed for other people. And then the last one is delegation. Delegation is, again, you can read books on it. It's a skill set that you can learn as a kid. It should be taught in every household. It should be taught for every child. Delegation just means that you don't have to do all the work, right? We are horrible at delegating. Moms, when you have moms that are doing everything, right? You're taking care of doing whatever the pastor asks you to do at church. You're doing everything for the kids. You're doing everything for the family. You're helping out people that would never help you. And you're carrying all that load on your back, and then you're wearing yourself down and still not getting everything done. Well, maybe taking that time to learn how to delegate would allow you to be more productive with less work. So what I learned over time, because I had that virus too, that whole like, I'm going to do it all myself kind of mindset. And what I found was that I hit a point where I couldn't work any harder. You can't work much more than 80, 90, 100 hours a week. And you find you hit a bottleneck, you hit a roof, right? But when you learn to delegate, then you learn to build teams, manage relationships with those team members, develop systems where you can deploy the work out to other people. And you find yourself working less than before, but you're getting more done. So these are skills. These should be intentional skills that you learn as kids in our community, not things that you just pick up because you read a book when you're 40. I'm talking about things you learn when you're 6. I'm talking about things you learn when you're 8 years old. Kids already understand teams. They learn teams by playing football and basketball typically. So they kind of already understand these ideas inherently, but they only know them through sports. But what I will tell you is that a lot of what you learn in sports could literally apply directly to business, wealth, and life. Literally, exact same thing. So anyway, I'm gonna answer some of your questions now. And I know that I went in that direction for quite a while. I hope that that was helpful information. That was what was on my heart today. So I shared it in hopes that it would help you in your wealth building journey. And one of the points I wanted to make, this is the key point I wanted to make this morning, which was that don't ever get it in your head that every Black family out here is struggling. There are a lot of Black families that have figured out the formula. They have cracked the code. And I believe, and and this is the stuff that gets me in trouble, but I believe that part of cracking the code means stop listening to white people and ignorant Black people. I just believe that. I'm sorry. I'd say that, and then that's where people get mad at me and stuff. But I don't care. I don't care. I think the way this system, remember, you're controlled by a system, so the only way you can really break out of the system is to build a better system, right? And I just believe that that stuff keeps us so backward, and it makes things hard, and you're trying to do really hard stuff, and you're using very primitive tools to do that. And I would say that shifting the culture is a very important part of that, because if you shift the culture around you, then you also realize you don't have to do it all by yourself. So in my household with my wife, you guys know I married a woman that had 3 kids. I love those kids. They work with me. It took me time to shift the culture. My wife was not an entrepreneur. She worked for her university. The kids, their dad, who's a great guy, they had a different approach to things, right? So having me around is a little bit weird. It's a little awkward at first, right? Because I have a strong personality, and I didn't push it on them. I would just do what I did, and I exposed them to another way of viewing the world. So after about 3 years of us being together, I brought the kids to the convention. They loved it so much that they insisted on coming back the following year. Also, eventually the kids came in and they started working with me. And on top of that, my wife, her business is flourishing, and I helped her kind of get her thing started. And so in a way, it's like now by shifting that culture, it's like we kind of all get it, right? Because everybody likes freedom. Everybody likes prosperity. Everybody likes peace. Everybody likes success. So by me being that head of the household, and then also learning from her, what I learned from her and the therapist is just how to do these things without being a jerk about it, right? Without preaching and yelling at people. I didn't do that. You know what I did? I simply came into my office every day, and I did the absolute best Boyce Watkins impersonation I could. I came in every day, and it wasn't an impersonation because that's really who I am. So every day when I'm talking to you, I never talk to the kids directly about what we believe. I would just do it, and they'd be walking by, or they'd see my books, or they'd hear me talking to another person on the phone. And before I knew it, they started coming to me, asking me questions, because they were running into the standard issues that Black people run into, things like racism, or I don't really like this job, or how am I going to get some money, or how can I find my happiness, or what should I do next with my life? And that's when I'm like, oh, I'm glad you asked. Let me give you a perspective. And so I encourage you to do the same thing. Shift that damn culture. You got to shift the culture and take the lead. Don't be scared to take the lead, but don't take the lead by forcing people to listen to you. Take the lead by forcing people to notice you. Do you understand the difference? Don't force them to listen to you, but force them to notice you. That means that if that's what you're about, if you get it and you understand and you're trying to break curses and all that, just be about it. If you are about it, then people are going to notice, right? Because what they're doing is not working. Chasing jobs, working for white people is not working. Acting like these stupid people on TV is not working. All this other stuff is not working. It's creating unhappiness, broken families, financial insecurity at an epic level, all kinds of stress and misery. So they're looking for something. It just may take time for you to show it. So one way that I was able through, with other people as well, to change the culture in a segment of the community is I just kept doing what I was doing and sharing, and eventually people came around. Okay. So anyway, I'm done. Thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful to you. All right, so let's see here. And that's part of what the convention is all about. It's not the Boyce Watkins convention, though. Just so you know, we have dozens of experts coming to the All Black National Convention. So it's not just about me. And that's another aspect of this, right? It's not about one person at all. It's because that sort of symbolic hero worship that we do in the community is not working. That's bad leadership. And so what we need to do is we need to have thousands of leaders in the community. We need everybody, all hands on deck. Everybody doing their best. Everybody being committed to a better vision. And I'm gonna answer your questions, but I get emotional when I think about this because I know we can do this, right? I know we can do it. I'm seeing it happen, and I'm not giving up, right? I'm not giving up. So anyway, guys, let me read your questions. I'm sorry, y'all caught me on a weird day. I guess I don't know what's going on with me. All right, so Claudia is asking, y'all pretend like that didn't happen. Pretend like I didn't just well up with these tears. That's what I think about every day. I'm literally obsessed with this, and that's how I know we're going to win because I'm not built to be a loser. And I know you're not either. So Claudia says, greetings, Dr. Boyce. Great to be here on a cold afternoon from London, starting out investing 150 pounds per month. How many shares do you buy in any month? The number that you buy, Claudia, really depends on you. If you want, you could literally invest that by buying 1 share a month and get the same diversification. Just look at things like mutual funds and ETFs and index funds. That's why they were built. They were designed to allow you to buy one asset that gives you a lot of everything. It's like a soup or something, or a multivitamin, right? If I take my multivitamin, I don't have to go out and get vitamin A, vitamin B, zinc, and all that. I can take one vitamin. So the number of shares really isn't as important as you sort of deciding how much you want to commit financially to investing. The mistake to avoid is by putting all your money into one stock. Like, that's not a good move in my view. I think you want to diversify. All right, so let's see here. Rarick says, can bank earnings calls help you see how the economy is going to be in the future? Yeah, when banks start releasing their earnings, Rarick, that becomes an important indicator of economic stability. Like, right, when banks start getting scared or banks stop loaning money, that is an indicator that the economy could have some cracks in it, and that there could be some economic problems on the way. What do you think about this ETF, ITA? You know what, Rarick? Let me put that, if you log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com, put that in. There's a section at the top where you can leave a question for me. Put that question in there, and I'll go research it and look it up for you. Let's see. In your eye, how do you think the 2024 stock market's? What do you think it's going to look like? I'm trying to think here. Most indicators that I'm seeing, a lot of the experts, and I listen to a lot of them, don't seem to feel that 2024 is going to be a bad year, but it's really hard to tell year by year. And the other thing too is that you have a lot of what they call black swan events. You have a lot of things that are going to matter next year that you're not even thinking about right now. Like a year ago, we weren't thinking about a war in Palestine and Israel because that wasn't even on the table. Right. So these black swan events are the things that you don't know. Right. Remember, when you talk about risk, you have the known, the unknown, and the unknown. Right. So the black swan events are the unknown unknowns. You don't even know what's going to shock you next year because you're not even thinking about it right now. So it's hard to predict for 2024. But long term, generally speaking, the market over any given decade, if you invest consistently over any given decade in American history, you were going to make money. So I think that long play, and that's more certain than trying to predict sort of next year or next month. Let's see here. Kim Hitchcock is asking about the conference, the convention. Yeah, well, we did have a discount for a while. Shauna, can you talk to Kim? Or Kim, if you're curious about the convention or anything like that, just text or actually email support@theblackbusinessschool.com, support@theblackbusinessschool.com, and they can take care of you and make sure you're good. Also, if you want to learn about the convention and who's going to be there and stuff like that, or if you're thinking about coming to Atlanta, or if you want to join virtually, all that information is at allblacknationalconvention.com. So feel free to go there. That's allblacknationalconvention.com. Atasha says, Dr. Boyce, I missed the disc. Okay, so you're asking about the conference. Okay, yeah, well, thank you, Atasha, for asking. Yeah, so I think we just shared that, so I'm gonna move forward. King says, can you give step by step how these Black people are doing so well? We talked about that for a minute, so I'll move to your next question. How to buy dividend stocks only. If you Google search highest dividend stocks, you could find it that way. There are a lot of stocks paying good dividend rates. Dividend paying companies can be like a supercharged savings account. So if that's something that's of interest to you, they're out there. As far as the best REITs, real estate investment trusts, there's so many out there. I can't think of any offhand that are my favorites, but there are a lot of good REITs out there. If you look on the Robinhood app, you type in REIT, you'll find just tons of real estate investment trusts that are on there, and you can look at the analyst reports within each individual real estate investment trust. And in addition to that, with what Dr. Boyce is buying, which comes with your program, you can see where I've suggested a couple of REITs over time. And if you're still not sure, you can log in at the blackstockmarketprogram.com. Just leave that as a question, and I can look and find you some more. Let's see here. I know it's important to keep up with the VIX, says Albert. The more dramatic the price swings are in the index, the higher the level of volatility, and vice versa. What is the number to keep an eye on? Well, generally the VIX, which is the fear indicator, pretty much tells you a lot about how investors are feeling. And so rather than sort of focusing on a specific number, I would sort of look at the general trend of where the VIX is relative to what it's been, over the course of the year. And you can Google search this. You can say, what is the VIX? And it'll give you kind of a historical trend there. And so when you see it sort of trending up, then that might typically mean that the market is obviously pessimistic. It tends to go up when the market has a big drop, or when there's a lot of bad news out there, or a lot of economic uncertainty and concern. That's also a time where stock options, if you sell stock options, that's when the price of the options that you sell go up. So if you sell stock options like we do in the Prime program, then you're able to actually generate more income by selling those options. But if you're buying options, they're going to be more expensive because options live off of volatility. They feed off volatility. So meaning risk. When things are risky and crazy, options tend to go up in value. So just, that's sort of a descriptor in terms of what to look for with the VIX and what an increase in the VIX actually means. And generally speaking, I don't like when the VIX goes up too much, because that kind of creates a little bit of chaos and uncertainty in the market. All right. So, and by the way, the options, if you want to sell options and want to see what we do with that, just go to drboyceprime.com. That's drboyceprime.com. All right. Errol, why do European or Middle Eastern, how does that war affect securities? Actually, Errol, it hasn't affected the stock market very much. The market kind of shrugged it off. It was kind of surprising. And I think it's because they don't believe the conflict's going to escalate. It's going to be contained. I don't know if that's a good assumption. I don't know. I mean, from what I was reading, it sounded, I don't know. I feel like that was not the best assumption, but maybe they know something I don't know. But so I would say that if you're concerned about that, then while the market's doing well, I know it had a good day yesterday. I got to check again for this morning, but I would, if you're concerned about the market dropping, that's what your put options are for, and that's what your stop loss orders are for, right? So you can actually put a floor in your stocks in case the market does go negative. Nellie from Boston. Good morning, doctor. Please explain systematic risk versus unsystematic risk. Yeah, so there's two types of risk in stocks. There's what they call systematic and idiosyncratic. So systematic refers to the entire economy at large and what's happening economy-wide. Idiosyncratic reflects what's happening to that particular company. So think of it like boats on water. If there's a tsunami and it hits all the boats, that's like systematic risk. And it's going to hit all the boats, right? Kind of the same way. Now, the idiosyncratic part of it, though, is that the way the systematic risk hits any individual boat is going to vary by the boat, right? If I have a tiny little boat, then that boat's going to get flipped over, right? Whereas if I'm in a gigantic cruise ship, then maybe that boat doesn't even feel the wave, right? If the boat has, one boat has a great captain that knows how to steer the boat, and the other boat has a terrible captain that doesn't know how to steer the boat, that's going to affect how the boat reacts. That's, again, idiosyncratic or non-systematic, right? Or if one boat is to the north and the other one's to the south, then the wave is going to hit the different boats in different ways because of their location. So that also is an idiosyncratic variable that affects how each boat reacts to the systematic issue. So what happens with the economy is you have the big ocean of the economy. Big systematic things happen. The Fed changes interest rates. There's a war in the Middle East. Consumer sentiment goes down, right? All these systematic factors affect all the stocks on some level, but how the individual stocks are affected by the systematic variables varies based on the individual stock. And then there's other individual things that have nothing to do with systematic risk that may affect how a particular stock is going to move. So one company, if their CEO dies or something, then that may impact their stock price. That's 100% idiosyncratic. Or if another company discovers an oil well and they're suddenly making 10 times more money, That's an idiosyncratic variable. So what the reason you diversify, the reason you buy lots of stocks is because all the theories show that when you own lots and lots of stock, you have eliminated and neutralized a lot of the idiosyncratic risk. You've gotten rid of a lot of the non-systematic risk, and all you have left is the systematic. Okay. All right. So a couple more questions, then we're out of here. Book club tomorrow, ask Kendall. Yes, we are going to do book club tomorrow. Let's see. I'm flying to the convention. I gotta. Yeah, you know what? Don't hold me to that. I gotta see what time I land in Atlanta. I'm going to the All Black National Convention tomorrow, so I might have spoke too soon. If I'm in my hotel, we'll still do book club. That's what we do every Wednesday night. Anybody that wants to join, I think there's a link at boycewatkins.com for you to join the book club. If you have any questions about anything in the Black Business School, just go to just email support@theblackbusinessschool.com. And the book club is free, by the way. We do Powernomics training every Wednesday. We've been doing that for years. How do we teach our children to be job creators? Well, one thing you could do is, in terms of making it a cultural value, you can just tell them that that's what you want to do. You want to create jobs for your community. You want to have your own business. You can say these things, and this will matter for kids. Like, they're going to carry this. I knew a guy who was a 30-year-old millionaire, and he went to Ohio State like I did. And I said, how did you become such a great entrepreneur? And he said, well, when I was a kid, my dad used to always say, any Black man who wants to be free needs to have his own business. And I said, well, did your father have his own business? And he said, no, he didn't. He worked for somebody. And I said, well, then how did you learn how to start a business? And he said, when I got to college and they asked me what I wanted to major in, I remember what my father said about having your own business. So he said, that's why I majored in entrepreneurship. You understand? So if you spark the initial flame, if you plant the seed, your child will grow the seed, right? So you don't have to be an expert on entrepreneurship, wealth, and business to get your child in a really strong economic position. My grandmother, rest her soul, we named our panther at the Black Business School after my grandmother. Our panther's name is Felicia. My grandmother got me started on wealth, but didn't know a whole lot about wealth. She had an associate's degree. She never made more than $22,000 a year, but she gave me simple core values that stayed with me through life. And then I just added on to it with the whole PhD thing. So don't think for 1 second that you have to be an expert at this to get your child on the right track. Values and culture matters more than training. That is what I have found. Values and culture matters more than training, because it is your values and culture that will shape the kind of training that you eventually pursue. If I don't value something, then I'm not going to learn how to do it. Do you understand? Do you know how many people that I've shared things with that literally, would have made a massive difference for them economically, but because their values were different, they weren't even listening. They didn't even hear it. I went into an urban radio station, and this lady was like, I don't know why you talk about that financial stuff. Don't know Black people want to hear about that stuff, right? But because their values told them, it's more important to know, whether or not Sexy Red is pregnant, or if Jay-Z and Beyonce are going to get a divorce, or how to get the latest iPhone, or whatever, right? So values, when you shape their values and their culture, then that gets them to the point that when they're deciding what they want to learn about, what they want to get better at, they're picking based on those values and their culture. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right? Professor James Small is extremely good at sharing this, right? We were going to give him our Dr. Claude Anderson Lifetime Achievement Award this year. He couldn't make it this year. I got to check on him, but seriously though, so just shape the value, shape the culture. So what are some values that a child can learn? Very simple things you could say that will make a big difference. Well, let's see. What do I say to my kids? I say things like, if you want to be free, it's easier to be free if you're not working for other people than it is if you work for other people. Everybody likes freedom. I don't have to talk them into that. I don't have to convince them of any of that. Even animals like freedom. What else? It's important for Black people to help the Black community. That's a radical idea, right? That's right. Think about how many Black people care nothing about the Black community. Like, literally, no. Well, because nobody ever told them that was an important core value. But some of you were raised with that core value. So I see you and you're like, yeah, I'm pro-Black, I'm bliggity Black, I'm triple Black, I want to do it, right? Because somebody told you that, somebody helped you identify yourself in that way, right? So when I shape those values, about freedom and Blackness and all that, or it's better to be intelligent than it is to be ignorant. Knowledge is power, right? That's another core value, right? Effectively, what that might do to a child, for example, is on their own, because they want what's best for themselves, not because you told them, not because they're trying to please you, but because they're trying to please themselves, they start going in a direction that is consistent with the values you gave them as a kid, right? Whereas, in some values, or some families, the core values are like, you got to be fly whenever you go outside. You got to be dressed with name brand clothes, or you're going to be a scrub, or maybe the values are, if that bitch make me mad, I'm gonna slap that hoe, right? Like that just stupid stuff like that, right? You've seen that too, right? And what do you see? Well, look around, right? So think about, so this is the wealth hack that I want you to consider, and this is what this is something that I think makes the Black Business School super innovative in this area. Focus more on culture and values than you do on actual training. Don't force anybody to go and learn how to do certain things. You're not going to have to teach them to need money. You're not going to have to teach them to want money. You're not going to have to teach them to want freedom or happiness, right? They're going to desire that on their own. They're going to, get that first job or whatever, like I did, and be like, oh, I can't do this, right? But if you sort of infuse certain values and a cultural norm that is conducive to economic power and freedom and everything else, then they're just going to kind of naturally go in that direction, right? And this is what I focus a lot on in my book, The 10 Commandments of Black Economic Power, because this is something, and this was an insight I did not come to until probably about 15 years after I got my PhD. And I knew a lot about finance 20 years ago, but that was nothing compared to what I know now. So I'm telling you, this is a hack. Nobody's talking about this. This will make a difference for your family. I guarantee it. Control that damn culture. Do not let the culture from the outside get inside, because it will obliterate the future of your family. And if you don't believe me, just look around. Okay. All right. So anyway, I'm done. I hope this conversation was beneficial to you. And again, I got to kind of apologize, because I know I spent some time sharing that perspective on that other stuff, and I think it was just because it was really heavy on my heart today. But I hope it was helpful to you, and I really want to see you succeed, and I wish you all the very best. And I'll see you guys soon. So hopefully, if you guys want to join us at the convention, it's the All Black National Convention. If you come to Atlanta, or if you live near Atlanta, I guarantee it will change your life. I guarantee it. Like, I have not met a person yet who didn't say this was amazing. This is the greatest thing I've ever been. It's really designed to be unique. And you're going to feel that when you're in that room. And so if you want to learn more, see what we got going on, just go to allblacknationalconvention.com. And also, if you want to join virtually, there are virtual tickets at the website, allblacknationalconvention.com. And my books, any of the books that I have, you can go to drboycebooks.com. We also have things like financial flashcards for kids, workbooks for your children, things like that. So feel free to go take a look at all those resources. All right, everybody. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys soon. I'll let you guys know how my flight goes. I'm going to be flying this afternoon. I'm kind of excited about it. So take care.